Hi, my name is Fertig. I'm the Associate Dean of the Mussar Institute, and I'm welcome you to week 2 of our Elul program. The theme of this week is Yirat Shamayim, as a Mussar-based motivation for change. And I'm specifically not defining Yirat Shamayim yet. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Most of us, I think, have expended considerable effort, time and effort, trying to figure out what it is that motivates others. It might be our children, it might be our students, subordinates at work. We know that life is challenging. The things that people have to do are often very difficult. That requires guidance, it requires inspiration, and mostly it requires motivation. However, we often forget that we have to find ways of motivating ourselves as well. Spiritual growth, change are very challenging. And therefore, it is essential that we focus, especially in this week and in the month of Elul, leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, on what it is and how it is that we can motivate ourselves to grow and to change. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and the Bali Mussar who followed in his pathway saw their primary role in life as motivators, of motivating others and also motivating themselves. What motivates you to change? What motivates you to grow in your inner spiritual life? Is it that you want to be a more developed person? Is it that you want to accomplish your goals, your life's goals? These are all important and essential motivations. But the Bali Mussar tell us that they're also, in the end, selfish motivations. A true Mussar Dika approach requires that we develop selfless motivations. Selfless motivations push us to understand from a point of humility that we are here to serve others and ultimately to form, to create, to nurture a relationship with God and ultimately, therefore, to serve God. Your relationship with God, like mine, is probably challenging. We don't know God. It's difficult for us to experience God. There's a teaching that I come back to very often that inspires me and that guides me. Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz, the spiritual advisor of the Mir Yeshiva in pre-war Poland, tells us that if we look at the laws of the Torah, they're divided into 2 categories. They are mishpatim. There are laws that we readily understand and appreciate. Murder, you shouldn't murder. You shouldn't steal. Adultery, these are things that we appreciate. We appreciate that they're good for us. They're good for society. But then there's a whole host of laws in the Torah that we don't rationally understand. They're above our ability to understand fully. They're not irrational, but we also don't fully understand their depth and their wisdom. A classic example would be the laws of kashrut, kosher food. Do we understand why it is that we are not supposed to eat food that is not kosher? No. There's other laws, many other laws, that are above our ability to understand. But Rabbi Yerucham tells us that's the combination of those 2 laws, 2 sets of laws, 2 types of laws that make the proper relationship to Torah and to God. If we look at the parenting relationship, it's the same thing. If your children only listen to you when they understand what it is you're asking of them, so then you lose the relationship of parent and to child. Of course, if everything is the opposite, if they never understand what you're asking of them, and it's only because I said so, so then they lose their faith in you. They lose their love of you. But it's the combination of the two together that creates the proper parent-child relationship. They have to know there are certain things that they have to do because Abba said so. And similarly, in our relationship with God, our relationship to spiritual life in general, we have to learn to accept and appreciate that we trust in God, that He has our best interests in mind, and that He knows what's best for us. That's what will develop this relationship. And that is very much the combination of the two primary relationships that we have with God, and that is love, on the one hand, Ahavat Hashem, and on the other hand, Yirat Hashem, Yirat Shamayim. Yira can be translated as either fear of God, fear of consequences, or, equally true, the awe of God. The appreciation for the awesomeness of the creator of our existence and what that requires from us. Rabbi Itzler Petersberger, the primary student of Yisrael Salanter, tells us that one can't fully come to the awe of God without basing it on a relationship of fear. Fear has a lot of negative connotations for us today, and it is challenging. It's difficult because we lack that experience. Are there people that we've seen that really fear the consequences of saying the wrong word to somebody, of closing their fist and not being generous? Do we fully appreciate that? Do we fear the consequences? Do we have a real appreciation for the consequences of that? I have a little bit of an easier time with this because I did witness, I mentioned in the video, the promo video, the awesome experience of praying in the Beit Midrash where I studied in Baltimore on the high holidays. And one such experience, the way it works in the yeshiva was that the front row is the rabbis, the staff, and then as you go out from there, the rows are the most important, the elder students, the more important students, the more accomplished students, and then you go back. So, of course, I should have been all the way in the back, but one year, one of the people that I had a close relationship to last minute he couldn't be there for Yom Kippur. So he gave me his seat right in the front row. And I was able to sit right in the front row and look at the staff as they were praying on Yom Kippur. And there was one rabbi there, his name was Reb Nachum, and Reb Nachum has an incredible amount of Yirat Shamayim. And I can just describe to you that the entire prayer service, which lasted almost the entire day, we have about a 15-minute break the entire day, he was standing, hunched over his shtender, with his talit over his head, whimpering the entire Yom Kippur. Now, I'm not advocating that, and that's certainly not my own practice, but I saw somebody who had a real sense of the consequences of his actions. We, of course, need, if we're going to be able to appreciate Yirat Shamayim at all, we need to create and to contemplate the reality of how damaging what it is we do and say could be to others and to our own souls. And that is the essence of Yirat Shamayim. That is the essence of what we will try to work on this week. The practice for this week is a most fundamental practice in the Mussar tradition, perhaps the most. You should continue journaling. As we said, we're going to continue journaling throughout. And we want to add this week a practice called Cheshbon HaNefesh. Cheshbon HaNefesh is the accounting of the soul. It means to contemplate your actions, your thoughts, and your words. To spend a few minutes a day to contemplate the damage that is done and the benefit that is accrued when we do the right thing. Our focus on Yirat Shamayim within the context of Cheshbon HaNefesh, and your Cheshbon HaNefesh practice you'll have in a separate document, and I encourage you to read that document carefully, which has all the instructions that you will need. But it will allow us, through this practice, to gain a real inner attitude of one who lives with a conscious awareness of the spiritual essence of the universe, to appreciate that one's inner life and struggles are really the most important things in our lives. See the details of the practice in a separate file. This is our work for this week, motivating ourselves through Yirat Shamayim. One final word. The word Yirat Shamayim also has the connotation of true vision. Yira is related to the word Re'iyah. Re'iyah means to see things the way they really are. The greatest way to focus or to cultivate that within us is to do the practice of Cheshbon HaNefesh. So I encourage you to do the practice, to read and to study the daily lessons. Thank you for being together with me on this journey.